once again, I'm Dr. Shelley Glover. I am a board certified gynecologist specializing in anti-aging, hormone balancing, and wellness. We've been doing our COVID live updates every single week, Friday at 4 o'clock, just kind of rehashing all the different things that have gone on for the week so that you don't have to do that. Because the goal is for you to try to live as much in the new norm as possible, and not to, great, thank you, and not to spend all your time watching the news about COVID-19, because it's like anything. Just like I don't recommend, when the hurricanes are coming, you can't be watching that all the time. And with the politics and stuff, I personally do not recommend that you watch that all the time because it will consume you. So that's my job, is to try to give you an update so that hopefully you can let go a little bit, and enjoy your week, and then but still have some knowledge. And there's a lot of new stuff, and a lot of it's positive. So I'm really kind of excited about that for this week. So let's go over our numbers real quick, and then we will jump into some of the different things that have occurred over the week. So number one, as far as worldwide cases, yes, we're up to 26.4 million cases, up from 24.5 last week. So yes, and the numbers are still going up. Let's not think that that's not the case. It is. The deaths across the world are 870,000, up from 832,000, and survivors, we're at 17.6 million survivors across the world. As far as the United States is concerned, we're at 6.28 million cases. Up from 5.89 million before. We are still, to put things in perspective, Brazil is the second country behind us as far as the number of cases of COVID, and they are 2 million behind us. So the United States is still, unfortunately, just has markedly higher incidence than any other country. The death rate is the number of deaths is 190,000, up from 181,000 last week, and we have 3.37 million survivors within the United States. You guys know I'm in Central Florida, so I always give our local data. Central Florida overall, we're at 640,000 cases, up from 615. Almost 616 last week, and we're at 11.6 thousand deaths, up from 10.9 last week. And we have 39.7 in the hospital that have been hospitalized since the beginning of the pandemic, up from 38,000. So about 1,000 more, almost 2,000. To put our number, and then let me just give you the local data for my really local people. Lake County, which is where my office is, which is a suburb of Orange County, is at 6.6 thousand cases, up from 6.2 last week. 455 hospitalized since the beginning, and 128 deaths. That's up from 103 last week. So we are seeing in Lake County, that was a significant jump for us in the number of deaths compared to previously, where we kind of eking up a little bit more slowly. So that's basically 25 more deaths in a week. So that was definitely not one of the positives to report on this week. The median age within the state of Florida is 41, and in Lake County 42. Women are about equal to men. I told you I was going to start following the kid data since the schools are back in. So in Lake County, the kids age 15 to 24, it's at 994,000, up from 932. So that's looking at about another 660 cases in that age group in Lake County, which is a small county. And it's the 25 to 34 group is up 1.14K, up from 1,000. And this whole number, those numbers for the kids, is out of 6.6 thousand again. Orange County, bigger county, they're at 36.4 thousand cases, up from 35,000 last week. 1.12 hospitalizations from 1095, so not too bad there, and 386 deaths. So if you did the percentages per capita, Lake County definitely had more deaths this week than Orange County did. The data for the kids, and the mean age in Orange County, we know that They had started, remember, back approximately about 6 weeks ago, the median age was as low as 31. It's now at 36, kind of been holding there. And they tend to have about 1,000 more women testing positive than men in Orange County. The kid data, 6.67 thousand, up from 6.3 in that 15 to 24 age group from last week, and 8.6 thousand from 8.3 thousand in the 25 to 34 age group. And remember, that's out of the total, which is 36.4 thousand. Looking at our states, other states' data, so Florida is still now ranking number 3. Once again, Texas bypassed us last week, and so California is still within the United States is the state with the most number of COVID cases. They are at 727,000, up from 693,000 last week, and their death is at 13.5 thousand, up from 12.7. Texas, 653,000, up from 642,000. And they're at 13.4 thousand deaths, up from 12.4. So they have now surpassed, they're right behind California in the number of deaths. So even though they have significantly less numbers, they have more deaths. So that is definitely concerning for Texas. And the fact that their numbers have surged significantly in, compared to Florida, which is now seeing some of a decline, which is a positive for us, but not a positive, obviously, for them. And we certainly do not want to, we don't wish anything ill on any other state, of course. New York, as we always say, is at 442,000, but their numbers, their big numbers were from the very beginning of the pandemic. They are up from 437, so a little bit of a spike, more than usual for them. But the death rate is still holding steady. They're at 32.6 thousand. They were at 32.5 thousand last week. So New York's doing pretty good there still. Georgia, it's at 261,000. So that's the fourth state. Oh, excuse me, the fifth state. And that's up from 247,000. So they're still seeing some big jumps. And their death rate went up from 5.27 thousand cases last week up to 5.7 thousand. So overall, there were 4,297 more cases yesterday in the United States. 42.9 thousand new cases yesterday in the United States. Now that's down from 75.8 thousand, which is, both numbers are horrible, but at least we are seeing a decrease now. Obviously with testing and all of that, it always gets into how many are getting tested, etc. But at least if we take it at face value, that's a positive. Deaths, 1066 on September 3rd, compared to 2,071 if you picked a date early in May when we were really having a huge amount of cases and deaths flooding the United States. So the United States is still not looking pretty, but at least our numbers are on a downward trend versus an upward trend in some places. Now, having said that, there are places that are going the wrong way, of course. The deaths, Florida only had 14 deaths, and please, every death is extremely important, and I'm not saying that, but yesterday there were 14 deaths compared to where we had over 60 deaths in early May. New cases, 3,259 in the state of Florida as of yesterday. And that's down from 4,730 a week ago and 6,334 a couple of weeks ago. So we are seeing a downward trend there in the cases. Bed availability, looking very good in Florida, especially in Central Florida. The Orlando Regional, which is one of the main hospital systems here in Central Florida, has seen a marked decrease in the number of COVID cases in the hospital. They are down to, their numbers are down to a 75% decrease from the peak. So that's amazing. They were at a high of 433 cases in the middle of July, and they are now down to 111 cases in-house through all of the Orlando regional hospitals. There are still 17 in the ICU. Um, and but to put and when they're testing the patients who are coming into the hospital, their positive rate is down to 4.67%, from as high as 26.2%, when the numbers were really getting out of control in Florida. Um, the percentages also, our percentage yesterday in Florida, or on the 3rd, was 6.2%, of people testing positive for uh, COVID 19 across the state. And the overall rate has stayed at 13.5%. The goal, of course, is to be less than 5%. So we have been doing extremely well, maintaining below 10% for the last several weeks. I'll go ahead and get one of the uh, like I said, a lot of the stuff that's happened over the last week has been positive. But for those of you that don't know, within Florida, we did have uh, an issue with one of the main laboratories here, which is Quest Laboratory, and they found a massive amounts of tests that had not been reported, and they reported them all at once. And these test results were uh, from now and went back as far as April. And they reported them all to the public health department at the same time on Tuesday. So it made the numbers go exponentially high. So please be clear, patients that were positive were notified. So it's not that the notification of COVID cases was not given to the people that were positive, but the data was not given to the public health department in a timely fashion, obviously. So our governor was not pleased at all with that, and he has actually said that Quest Laboratory will no longer be able to perform COVID-19 testing for the state of Florida. That doesn't mean that private physicians couldn't use that, but as far as the public health department and the money that is controlled by the state of Florida, they will not be using that laboratory because of that. So that's one of the things that came out this week. But not, I mean, yes, it messes up our data points, but other than that, I mean, it's still all good as far as Florida is seeing a nice trend down at this particular moment. So we're going to enjoy the positives as well. We don't have to be. Everything doesn't have to be negative. Within the Florida, Central Florida here, which is, well, actually, I'm in South Florida right now, right? But in Central Florida, the schools are open. I think we've discussed this before. There are people that are in brick and mortar schools. There are also people that are in doing hybrid, which is what my daughter is doing, which is 9 weeks at home. And then depending on what's going on in 9 weeks, she may go back to brick and mortar, or she may stay virtual. And then there are kids that are just doing straight homeschooling for the whole year. So we have 3 different tracks. Now, there were, as I mentioned before, the teachers associations had filed complaints and lawsuits, actually, one of them against the state of Florida for demanding that the schools reopen or they wouldn't receive funding. So that was heard by a judge and was deemed, was the teachers won that lawsuit. So it was deemed that the schools cannot be forced to open in unsafe surroundings. Now, of course, the schools have already been open pretty much everywhere. So haven't seen much of a change, at least here in Central Florida, with that information. But I guess it will make, if things were unfortunately to go the wrong way, I think that it would make it easier for the schools and the teachers to feel comfortable with making changes if need be, without risking being penalized by the state of Florida as far as funding goes. Hi, Karen. Hi, Eileen. So that's one of the things that happened. We did have, this isn't this week, this was before, 6 schools in Osceola County, which is above, um, help me guys, Osceola is It's around here. So I'm drawing a blank. But anyway, six of those schools actually did have to close because of COVID outbreaks. Within Central Florida, Orange County, there were 54 cases reported. Oh, so one of the other things that the other uh, uh, lawsuit that the teachers, one of the things they were demanding is disclosure on cases and what was going on with COVID in the school system. So now in Orange County, the superintendent calls and gives an update. And they're going to be doing it twice a week with the number of COVID cases and what's going on in the schools, etc. So I just got our update, and there are 54 cases in 34 schools in Orange County. Um, so overall, considering the number of kids we have, I mean, we expected there were going to be cases, so it's not exponential. We will talk about some exponential cases in just a minute. Hi, Tanita. So let's get into some of the new things that have transpired over the week. So surges, where are the surges? So they're not in Florida. Where are they? So Cuba's had a huge surge in the last week. They've had a significant number of increased cases, and so they've actually started imposing some curfews there. They have night curfews and to try to control some of their new cases. Uh, our Iowa within the United States has the most new cases per capita of any state in the last week. So they are definitely scrambling, and this goes to show you once again that the rural and before they were kind of saying at the very beginning of the pandemic that this was going to be just a city problem because everybody was densely populated, etc. Well, this just shows you. I mean, Iowa is not um, you know known for being packed in. So obviously, no one is exempt. Everybody has to do their part if they do not want to see COVID become a big problem in their population. So we knew with the schools going back with the college students that we were going to have issues, and we are seeing it. We're seeing it on lots of college campuses. There are campuses that are closing. Um, uh, the San Diego State University suspended classes for a month due to COVID cases. University of South Carolina had over 1,000 students testing positive from just over like a 3-day period at the end of August. They've sanctioned 15 students and several Greek houses, and they're definitely seeing that the problem is the congregating. So it's not the students are wearing their mask when they go to school, but when they're out and at home and back in their frat houses and stuff like that, there are parties going on. There is not social distancing. There is not adequate mask wearing, and they're seeing the results of it. They just had another school, SUNY, and I'm going to butcher it. It is Oneida. It's upstate New York. SUNY is one of the state schools for New York, and it's one of their upstate schools. They just had over 500 cases, and they just shut their school down for the rest of the semester. University of Georgia has had over 800 cases as well. So they are definitely seeing a surge at the university level. There are schools that are, definitely cracking down on their students if they're trying to stay open. And then, like I said, a lot of them are actually changing their tune and just actually shutting. So that's some of the I guess, negative stuff. So let's get into some of the positive stuff that's been going on. Or first, I want to just brush on the whole vaccination thing. I mean, you guys have heard in the media now, the latest buzzword is that the vaccinations, that we might actually start vaccinating as soon as the end of October to the beginning of November, which of course coincides with election time. So as I've said over and over and over again, this is a medical problem, and we hope that as much as possible it's kept in that realm and not in the political realm. And we have basically spoken out as a country against Russia rushing their vaccination process of skipping over their phase 3 of the vaccination trials and launching out their vaccinations to the general public. So I would hope that our country would practice what they preach, and that we would take the time to get a good vaccine and not rush because of anything, politics or otherwise, to push out a vaccine before it has been correctly vetted and we know that it is a safe and be effective. Having said that, and so the likelihood is that there is not going to be a vaccination out by that point. So it's still swirling, but don't get too alarmed about that. Also, there is no point at this point of, obviously there are a lot of conspiracy theories out there, and with anything there can be a little bit of a grain of salt within things, but take things carefully, dissect, do go and do your own research on different things, and realize that um, there's not going to be a microchip put in you, and you're not there. At this point, there is no plan for forcing everyone to get vaccinations. It will be recommended, as is with any vaccination, but at this point, there is nothing in the works for that. Now, you know, can I say 100% never say never? No, you can never say never, right? But at least at this point, that it should not be, something that can be done in the United States, where we have our freedom rights, right? So having said that, the one thing about the vaccinations that you do need to realize is that we know that um, everyone can get COVID. We know that older people are more susceptible to getting worse cases. We know that people that have medical illnesses like diabetes and are obese and have high blood pressure are more likely to have worse outcomes. We know that African Americans have a 2.5 times chance of dying over their white counterparts. We know that Hispanics are 1.5 times more likely, and Native Americans. So this disease is not um, 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 an equal playing field. And a lot of that we can get into a billion reasons why, and a lot of it is socioeconomic and is longstanding uh, health things that have gone on. It's not specific just to COVID. We're just seeing it. And COVID is actually showing us more of the disparities that have been present all along. However, having said that, there's a big fear, especially in minority communities, about vaccinations because of things that have occurred in the past, where, in particular, African Americans were uh, put in trials they didn't even know they were in, and things were done and without their consents, etc. So there is a wariness of the healthcare system, and in particular regarding trials within the African American community. I will just say this, and I can tell you, I get a billion people every day saying, I'm not getting that vaccine. So all I say, once again, never say never. Please open your mind. Just pay attention to the data. I'll try to give you the data as it unfolds. There's 150 vaccines out there across the world, not just in the United States. So, and like I said, they are rolling them out in other places, probably way faster than we're going to get them. So let's let the dust settle, etc. Now, having said that, there are trials ongoing, and what they're finding is that the majority of people enrolling in the trials are young Caucasian people. So the problem with that is the vaccine is going to be as good as the trials make it. So if we don't have elderly people, if we don't have people that have medical um, uh, problems that we know make COVID worse, if we don't have minorities enrolling in the trials, then that vaccine may not work for the people that it actually needs to work the best for. So please keep that in mind. And if you are not um, um, petrified of a vaccine, consider being one of the people that actually enrolls in the trials. And the other thing that a lot of people may or may not know, and this is not new to COVID, but you can be reimbursed for being in the trials, and that's completely legal, and it's been going on for forever. I mean, I don't know about forever, but that's a very common practice for any medical trial. So this is not something specific to COVID. But I do know that there are several that where the reimbursement can be like $1,000. So I'm not saying, I'm just letting you know, just giving you some information. So if you're not especially if you're in one of those groups and $1,000 sounds appealing to you and you're willing to do, I mean, there are protocols you have to A, meet criteria, B, you have to be willing to follow up and give the information because that's how they get the data. But if you're willing to do all that stuff and you're not petrified of being in a vaccine trial, then you should definitely look into it. And there are some I'm sure going on wherever you live, and Dr. Google is your friend. Just Google on there, and I'm sure you can find it. All you have to do is just type in COVID-19 vaccination trials. If you're having trouble and you would like some information and would like my assistance, by all means, you can instant message me, and I can try to help you out based on where you live to get you some data if that would be of help to you. So that's all I want to say about the vaccinations for now. So what other new things do we have? So one exciting thing, because if any of you guys have had the COVID testing, and I've done it, good Lord, at least 4 times, and I've done it nasal swab and I've done it at the back of the throat. And so they are finding, there was a study done at Yale for a particular test. They call it the Saliva Direct Protocol. And they are finding that COVID test is actually doing just as well as the nasal swab, if not better. So that's really exciting because, yes, the nasal swab, you do feel like somebody's tickling your brain there. And so you will survive. I mean, it's not, I tell people, there are way worse things in life than getting a nasal swab done, and I've had it done twice. Um, but but at the same time, if we're able to do it in the saliva, that will make it much um, I think, help more with the fear of actually getting the test done. And also, yes, it's definitely a more pleasant experience. The other thing that's really nice about this is that there's no company behind it. And so it should be very reasonable. For those of you that do not have insurance that's paying for your COVID testing, it can run 100 to probably, I think the most I've seen here in Central Florida is about 150. But I'm sure there's some places out there that is charging way more than that as well. So this should be a test that can be done very reasonably, and that will also allow for more access, and therefore they're still working on, I think, the speed. This is not a rapid test, so we're still going to have, but because the reagents, one of the reasons why the tests are taking so long to come back is because the things they use to get to the results, they have shortages of it because there's so many people getting tested. So this is very simple reagents that most hospitals and facilities have readily available. So the test results should come back faster and faster because of that. So that's a big positive. I was really excited to hear about that. Um, the other new thing, you've heard me talk about dexamethasone as a steroid, part of the things that we know seem to be helping COVID-19 patients. So yes, there have been several studies that just came out this week that have confirmed that yes, the steroids definitely are significantly helping in the reduction of deaths due to COVID-19. And in particular, the one that seems to be the most promising is dexamethasone. And the positive of that is, once again, that is a very reasonably priced steroid. So that's a plus. It seems like there's about a third of a reduction of COVID deaths. So that's pretty significant. We're talking about 33% less likely to die of COVID-19 given steroids. And so that's really, really promising. Now, what they did find, just so you don't run out and try to buy dexamethasone and give it to yourself, it doesn't. The benefits are in the severely ill ICU patients. They have not seen significant benefit even when they've given it to patients who come in to the hospital and have some symptoms but are not severely ill. So it's not something that, like I said, you want to run out and try to get a hold of steroids and start taking and thinking that that's going to help you from either getting COVID or from dying of it. So please don't do any of that stuff. But it's still very helpful if you have a loved one in an intensive care unit. Standard of care right now should be involved them receiving steroids. What else is new? So we have another study that just came out, which was very interesting. And you've heard me talk before about the cytokine storm. So let's back up. So when COVID-19 first hit, we were thinking that it was a lung disease, right? And so we thought it was all about our respiratory system and our breathing system, and that people were that's how they were becoming severely ill and that how they were dying. Then we saw that, hey, you know what? We're doing everything that we think we're supposed to be doing for these patients for respiratory. We're treating them like a severe respiratory illness, but they're still dying. So what else is going on? So then they came up with the theory of the cytokine storm, and they realized that the the body's immune system was mounting a response to the virus and kind of attacking the virus, but also taking attacking the body as well and going into overdrive, and that was part of the problem, and that was part of the reason why people were dying. Then we saw that there were some that there seems to be a big clotting issue going on with that, where we're seeing little what we call microemboli, where blood clots throughout the body and affecting different organs, not just the lungs. And so that's your circulatory system. And so we've got your immune system, we've got your respiratory system, we've got your circulatory system. So what does this tell us? COVID is a bad actor, right? And so it doesn't mean, it's not that, okay, it doesn't affect the respiratory system. It's affecting all of these things. But one of the things that we've been, and that's why we've been recommending wearing the mask, why we've been recommending doing the physical distancing, is to slow things down enough so that the medical community can figure out what to do with this disease and figure out how this disease is working. And so that's what you're seeing, is that the data is constantly coming in, and they are finding new and new more information on this every single day. So what happened this week? They took with a study that got released this week, they had taken the numbers from 17,000 genetic samples of COVID patients, and they put it in this supercomputer. It's the second fastest computer in the world. It's located in Tennessee. They call it the Summit Supercomputer. And they crunched all the data. They put all this COVID data into this computer, and they let it run for like a week, and to see what was going on and see what this computer had to say about why people um, uh, uh, have uh, are getting COVID, why they're dying of it, what can be done, blah, 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 blah. So what they found was that instead of the cytokine storm, which may still be going on as well, that there's something called a Bradykinin hypothesis, and that there may be a Bradykinin storm. So what the heck is that? Okay, so that's involving our circulatory system instead of just our immune system. And they think that when they take that information and they plug it in, that it's really in line with many of the things that we're seeing with COVID, where we were scratching our heads going, well, what does that have to do with that? Like, why is there loss of sense of smell? Why are people getting COVID toes where their toes are turning mottled and getting bigger? And why aren't they responding once again if we put them on the ventilator at high pressure ventilations? So it's explaining, because the bradykinin and its response in the circulatory system explains many of the things that go with COVID. So what are they saying? They're saying that and why women do better than men, because women have our receptors, we're just better, of course, but anyway, our receptors for this particular circulatory system are a little bit different, and it gives us a positive advantage. So it still is, they do still think that is coming in through the nose, that it is affecting these, what we call, you've heard, the ACE two receptors, and then it goes into the cells. And so one of the main places that has ACE2 receptors is the nose, but then also the intestines, which is your gut, your kidneys, and your heart are big ones that have these receptors. But what they're finding is that then it's actually then making the body produce more of them. So it's almost like, when I tell people, when you're dealing with addiction, addiction doesn't necessarily mean that you are high or happy from whatever the drug is. It means that your body can't live without it, and your body will do things to make you reach for that drug. And so, the 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 so this is kind of a similar thing, where this COVID-19 is kind of like turning the body and saying, I want more of those 2 receptors, and it's actually making the body produce more in organs that normally don't have a lot of them. So, and it was interesting because the article kind of described it, and I really like the description that they gave, and it said, COVID-19 is like a burglar who skips in your unlocked second floor window and starts to ransack your house. Once inside, though, they don't just take your stuff, they also throw open all your doors and windows so that all their accomplices can rush in and help pillage more efficiently. And so I thought that was a pretty interesting uh, description of what COVID appears to do. So it's this the whole bradykinin thing involves something called the RAS system, or the renin-angiotensin system, which controls your circulatory system and then controls your blood pressure. Okay, and so by attacking this and making the bradykinin go up, it sends everything into haywire, and it sends the blood pressure all over the place, and it affects all these different things. They're also thinking that this also has something to do with the reason why the lungs don't do well, because it also, bradykinin in high numbers produces hyaluronic acid, which is one of the things that if you guys do aesthetics, we do that in, we put hyaluronic acid in our faces, and that's what's in the fillers, and that's because that's what we want, right? We want volume, and we want to look younger, and it pulls volume, and it pulls fluid to your into your skin tissue, which makes you look good. But we don't want that in our lungs. And so what happens is the bradykinin makes the vessels in the lungs more leaky, so fluid leaks out into the lungs, which is not a good thing and doesn't help with breathing. And then it actually it produces more of this hyaluronic acid, which then pulls more fluid, and it makes almost like a gel in the lungs, which makes it hard for people to be able to breathe. So the I know this sounds like bad, but this is really exciting because it's something brand new that they can then use to say, okay, what can we do to make it better? And so there are drugs out there that are already being utilized that are not super expensive, that they can then say, okay, they're being used for other things, but how can we take those drugs and can we apply them to the COVID-19 and help to decrease the symptoms, hopefully not just the severe, like that, like where we're seeing, say, with the dexamethasone, where people are almost dying before you're seeing significant improvement, but things that we could do maybe earlier on, and so in helping with both treatments and prevention. So really, really exciting data. I'm excited about it, and then one of the things that they did find that you can do now. So no, I'm not even going to tell you what drugs they're talking about, because we don't even want to go there where we have a run of people trying to get on these drugs to try to decrease their risk for bradykinin storm. But one of the things they did find that is helpful, that we've already discussed, is vitamin D. And so if you need any further reinforcement, this is it. And it's very good for decreasing. They feel it's already been shown to help in COVID patients. We've already had that conversation, but specifically with this whole bradykinin storm, that it could definitely help in decreasing that from occurring. So if you have your vitamin D and you haven't been taking it, then hopefully this will help reinforce the need to be on good supplements. I always tell you, garbage in, garbage out, but get your vitamin D level. I recommend it between 70 and 100, not just barely in the normal range. Remember, the normal range for vitamin D goes from 30 to 100. You certainly do not want to be deficient, but coming in at 32 is not as good as if it could be, like I said, I aim for that 70 to 100 mark. So yes, I do follow levels, but D is definitely something besides the other things that we've already discussed for boosting your immune system, but D definitely seems to be a key player. One more thing I wanted to go over with you, two more things, and then I'm going to let you guys go. And no, Beth, I'm sorry, I have not been on Facebook today. So if you put a post to an article, I will check it out, and maybe we can discuss it next week. The social media, speaking of Facebook, etc. Everyone knows or should know that what you look at on social media actually dictates what you are shown. So, uh, for example, if you are a Democrat, you're going to see ads. If they see you leaning towards Democratic ads, they're going to give you Democratic ads. If you're Republican ads, they're going to give you Republican ads. If you are, and so conversely, the other thing that people don't know is that, what you should, is that food. So we, I mean, who doesn't know, like if you like right now, if I have a conversation right now about Ked's tennis shoes, I can guarantee you that when I go on Facebook later, Ked's tennis shoes are going to show up on my Instagram or on my Facebook page because, Big Brother's always listening. So, having said that, they pay attention to your food. And so, if you are if you are getting food, if you're clicking on junk food, they're going to continue. They're going to show you junk food, and so try to be looking at healthy things, exercise, and healthy foods, etc. Versus, because if not, they're finding that what we're seeing in this pandemic is that the people that are getting healthy are getting healthier. And then the people that were not doing so well, a lot of them are going the other way. And that's because actually the social media is kind of rubbing a little salt into that wound. So make sure you're not falling into that. I think we almost everybody got their COVID anywhere from 5 to 15. You guys saw my pictures, and I told you I thought I only gained 5, and I actually got on the scale, and it was actually 10. So I'm back. I'm on it. I'm back to behaving myself. Have to. Um, oh, good, good, Beth. Beth, good. So that's the study. So Beth was basically saying that she had read the study that we were talking about earlier about the bradykinin and all of that. And she was saying the whole thing about the burglar coming in your house. I think that's just an excellent analogy. I think it was I really love that. So I'm really excited, like I said, about that study. Just watch what you're eating. This is the time. Do not forget that obesity is one of the biggest risks for not doing well with COVID, and that's across all races. But even more so in the minority community. So if you have kind of slacked off and you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing since the COVID quarantine, you can't go backwards, but brush yourself off. Like I said, it's gorgeous outside, at least here in Florida, and it's hot, but get out, get moving. You can get in a pool or get in the beach or run through a sprinkler, do that, but get some activity going and watch this activity. And if it's going to be this activity, make sure that it's with some healthy stuff. Like I said, get on the vitamin D. You know that we're going into Labor Day weekend, so please maintain your get out, go somewhere, but you don't, no closed in environments. No, you want to maintain your physical distancing. And I know that there's all of the controversy about the mask, but I say it's a very simple thing to do. Until proven otherwise, there's nothing else that we have that is so simple that can actually decrease the risk for transmission. Not 100%, but it's certainly, oh, good. Beth lost 13 pounds. I hate you, Beth. But anyway, that's good. I hate you and I love you. So I want to be you in 2 weeks. So hopefully, I don't think I can lose 13 pounds, but if I can lose 5, I'll be happy. So just remember, and that was the other thing. So you guys all know The Rock. And if you didn't pay attention and you didn't hear that, he and his entire family had COVID 19, and they are now on the other end. But he will tell you it was a very harrowing experience. And where did he get it from? They went on vacation with a few close friends. So, as I've said over and over again, the risk of getting COVID is actually not the stranger that you're seeing walking down the street. Your biggest risk for COVID is people that you know, because you're more likely to let your guard down. And when you drink, you're more likely to let your guard down because your guard is down. So you're more likely to not wear your mask. You're more likely to start yelling because you're happy. And usually where there's music, there's drinking, etc. So it becomes this vicious cycle. So please enjoy your Labor Day, but enjoy your Labor Day responsibly. So I think that's all I have for you guys for this week. But I thought it was a really exciting week with overall positive things coming out, rather than negative. So hopefully you found that informative. And I will see you guys next Friday. And have a wonderful weekend. As always, stay healthy and stay safe. Take care.